Hello and welcome to the channel. So as you have probably seen by now, I'm doing a series of videos where I'm reading books for the hardest reading challenge you've ever done, or HRCYED for short. And originally the plan was to come out with one video per prompt and kind of do all of the reading that way. But I started filming this a while ago and basically ended up with a ton of half-filmed videos and nothing posted. So here we are now, several months later, actually posting these reading videos. And I've come to the realization also, if I want to finish this challenge, we need to do something a little differently. And thus, the jar was born. Basically, there's about 10 videos that are going to come out that are devoted to HRCYED bingo boards or board challenges. And the rest of the challenges are all in here. And every one of these corresponds to one of the prompts, and not even just the board, but all the sub prompts. So every week we're going to be doing a little weekly reading vlog where we read as many of these as we can and try to get through all of these before July. And just a little secret, we also have this pile that just did not fit in the jar. So we're going to be reading a lot and we are going to be busy. But I really am setting this goal for myself because why not? I was trying to think of a reason why I'm setting this goal. I don't know. Here we are. I'm assuming we're going to have to try to get through like 10 of these prompts a week. I don't think that's possible, but we're going to try. There might be some bonus videos up at some point where I'm doing like weekend readathons to try and do it. But yeah, we'll see what we can do. When I'm filming this now, it is towards the end of April. And yeah, we have a lot to do, but we're not going to feel discouraged. We are going to, in fact, only feel excited. And let's pull our first prompt for the week. So I tried to really like mix up the prompts that I was putting in here and the ones that I have not fit in. The colors don't correspond to anything. I was mixing that up too. Let's go grab one towards the bottom. I guess we have a yellow, and let's see what this says. Disability rep. So one of the squares on HRCYED is to read books with, I believe it's 5 disability reps. So 5 books with a disability rep, 5 different representations. I will go and take a look at my TBR, see what I have as an option, and then come back. All right, so for our first book on disability rep, I decided to pick up True Biz, and this is a book that really dives into the deaf community and basically the hearing loss community as well. And I am really enjoying this. Actually, so I'm enjoying this in the sense that I feel like I'm learning a lot about the deaf community that I really just did not know at all. We have a story where we're following the head of a boarding school for deaf teenagers and children. And the head of the school is a woman with hearing, but she was raised by deaf parents. So she has that perspective. There's actually a ton of perspectives, the different types of lived experiences. There's also a young girl whose parents were not necessarily as accepting of her hearing loss and really tried to, I don't know, like, I guess we could say tried to do their best, where they gave her hearing implants, they brought her to all these different things, but essentially because the way that the implants didn't properly connect in her brain, she's been living for many years with limited language skills, and it's really put her back in life because she doesn't know how to sign, she can barely read lips, and relies heavily on this implant that doesn't necessarily connect with her brain as much as it should be. And we're also following a teenage boy whose family are considered like almost like celebrities within the deaf community because they just have a long history of every member of this family dealing with hearing loss. So we're following them basically as they're at their school and living their lives. And especially for our young female main character, she is learning to adapt to trying to learn sign language, learning to be around other deaf people, and trying to just get language back in her life. And then there's other things that are going on as well. We're really delving into just different interpersonal issues that are happening, in particular with our headmaster of the school. She is dealing with the potential cut of funding for the school. She's dealing with her mother getting sick. She's dealing with marriage issues. And all of this is also just focused on the day-to-day interactions that are happening in the school. The story itself, I will say I'm not very interested in. I don't really care about the drama that's happening. All the like school politics and stuff, I really don't care about. And it is not gripping me at all. But I am finding it very interesting to learn a lot more about the deaf community. And I guess it's like, I don't know that many people who have hearing impairments. So it is interesting to kind of see what life can be like for people. And in particular, there's a lot of chapters that are kind of like, not even chapters, but more of like breaks in between chapters where they're telling us a bit of the history of this is some pivotal moment that happened within the deaf world, or here's a little bit of knowledge about how sign language works. And that part I'm finding really interesting, entirely just pure knowledge and learning just more information there. Honestly, like I think I would have preferred a nonfiction, just I could do without the drama that I don't care about, but I love learning about this community. So that's kind of where we are. We're about halfway through. It's a very quick read, and I think it's going to go pretty quickly for the rest of the day. Yeah, I'm just like not crazy invested.
Yeah. Pop in, burning like this, ain't checking my wrist. Third is my shift. Rolling all night like flex. We look at the clips, these credits are lit. Stacking miles, I'm far away from home. I got what I wished for. Taking that risk, I'm checking my list. Marathon man, it's run legit. Can't let it slip when it's all in my grip. Talking too much, he probably not it. All that I did, calls I missed, time I spent, yeah.
Okay, so I am getting ready to go. Well, it's later on in the day. And I'm starting to pack because we're going away for the weekend, leaving very early tomorrow morning, probably like 7 a.m. And it occurred to me that I probably should pick out a few books to like have ready to go this weekend. Even though I don't anticipate a lot of reading time, I want to make sure we're good just in case. So I did pull out two more of these. And I probably should have filmed it. We did not. So first off, we have, nope. Sorry, I'm confused because I did also finish the book I'm reading. We have two to talk about. Quote is and BIPOC author. So let's talk about these book choices. Sorry, I'm confused. Let's talk about these book choices and then I will go in and tell you about the book that we finished. So first off, this is for the prompt where I forgot the name of it. I'll put it up. But essentially you need to make a quote and read a book from every word in said quote. I picked my personal favorite quote from Dune and one that I am really, really excited to get tattooed on me at some point, which is "Fear is a mind killer, the something of total obliteration." Something, I'll write it down. Despite the fact that it is my favorite quote, you would expect me to know it. It's like "Fear is a mind killer, the little death that obliterates." Anyways, we pulled the word "is." So had to have a quote with the word "is" in the title. Shockingly hard. I ended up going with, there's a nonfiction called Is a River Alive? And I think in this one, we just look at rivers and talk about the concept of, rivers flowing and explore this idea of should they be considered a living being or Like, is nature considered living in some ways? I don't know, but that is our book that we are reading. We have a nonfiction. And then second one, BIPOC author. There is another bingo square I will put in because my mind is empty, where you need to read from 10 BIPOC authors, and they all have to have an identity that is different than your own. Thankfully, I have like 0 identities, so very easy to find someone. For this one, I am going with a book that I am intensely excited for, and that actually, like, very coincidentally, my loan just came in on Libby, so it worked out very, very perfectly. But we're reading Red City by Marie Lu, which I have been hearing rave reviews about. Like, everyone I know who's read this has given it like 4 or 5 stars. You cannot stop talking about how fantastic it is. And this one is, I believe, an urban fantasy that is talking about alchemy and getting into like rival gangs, kind of. Like, it sounds like urban fantasy with gangs and alchemy. And I don't know much more than that. I also don't need to. I am so excited. I genuinely think that this book is going to be incredible, and I can't wait to read it. So now that we have our 2 choices down, let us talk about the book that I read for Disability Rep, aka True Biz. And so, like I said, this one has deaf representation and really, really dives into a lot of dynamics of deaf individuals who go to this school where it's a school entirely for deaf children, and a lot of it is learning sign language, learning how to cope in a hearing world, and also just getting an education that is accessible to them and not something where you're really seen as like an afterthought in a typical classroom. So for a lot of reasons, I did like this one. And when I say that, it's primarily like I just really, really enjoyed learning about the deaf community. And I really enjoyed a lot of these tidbits that we were getting about like the history of sign language, of these different things like that have happened within the deaf community, these different, like, just how life has evolved for deaf individuals. And that part really, really liked. But kind of what I was saying earlier is that I actually didn't like the story. Like, I liked learning more about this world, but the story itself, I just really didn't care that much about. We're mostly following high schoolers, and while, like, I'd say they definitely have very serious real life problems, and we're definitely following those. At the same time, there was a fair amount of high school drama, and I just didn't get interested. And there was just a lot of, I don't know, the characters felt a lot more surface level than I kind of wanted. It felt like we weren't necessarily learning too much about them, aside from their identity as being deaf. There was just a lot of things that I personally didn't connect to, unfortunately. And I do think one of the bigger things is, like, I didn't really like the characters or the story we went on. So that, like, definitely impacted my enjoyment. Otherwise, I'm still happy I read it. Like, I'm still really, really happy I did. It's probably around a 3-star for me, just because I couldn't truly get invested, but I'm very happy I read it. So we have one disability rep done, and we have 1 book read, 1 more of our many prompts checked off. And I'm gonna head away for the weekend, hopefully read these 2 books, and then come back when I'm home. We actually have quite a few updates to talk about. Let me get this a little more stable. I got a new tripod like several months ago, and I'm still trying to figure it out. I can't get it to lock quite the way I want it to. Will that work? Maybe. Okay, maybe this is gonna stick. So we have updates, and we are gonna pick a new prompt shortly. So first off, it is after the weekend. We are several days later, and now we're coming in to, I don't know, talk about what I read over the weekend. So weekend away in Montreal, super fun, very good. Didn't really do much reading last night there, but I did some when I got home last night, and now, yeah, we're making progress. So started Red City, and this was our prompt for BIPOC author. Loving it. This is so ridiculously good. Like, genuinely one of the best fantasies I've read in a bit. And by that, I mean like one of the most engrossing books I've read in quite some time. Like, something that is actually completely taking over my brain. And I am getting so ridiculously into this. We're really following like these two main characters from, I would say, kind of childhood to, I think, at some point in their adult years. I'm assuming that's where it goes. But both of them are kind of brought into this world of alchemy and slowly introduced to it, slash, like slowly get involved into these syndicates that exist. And in this world, there's alchemy. It is very much like a secret within the world. People don't know about it, aka the general public doesn't know. But there's various crime syndicates that are really, really involved in this alchemy world. And they're all kind of at war with each other because they have their territories, they have their reputations, and also they develop this drug called sand, which is essentially like it boosts everything about you. So if you have charisma naturally, boosts that. If you are somebody who is smart, makes you smarter. If you are somebody who kind of blends into the shadows, makes you even more invisible. And this drug makes a crazy amount of money for the alchemists. So it is obviously something that they very tightly control the production of, and very tightly kind of control who in the city is like really, really involved in it. So we're following these two teens. One of them, when he's a child, he is kind of noticed as being, I guess they say it, he has a strong soul. And that is apparently an indicator that somebody will be really good at alchemy. And he's kind of brought from this small town that he lives in, brought away from his family, and brought to our main city to get really involved in to start training as an alchemist. And while he's trained, he still goes to a normal school. And there he meets, so his name is Ari, and there he meets Sam, who is basically the daughter of an immigrant. She and her mother live alone. They really like are struggling a lot of the time. Her mother's a waitress. They really have like no extra money. And after a tragedy happens, Sam finds herself involved in this alchemy world and finds herself being a bit of a prodigy. And we don't realize it right away, but they are in opposite syndicates. So we're going to be following them kind of as they battle. And it is intensely interesting. Like, this book is so, so good so far. I'm just incredibly, incredibly interested in everything that's happening. And I am so, so addicted with like every page that we turn. So that one going fantastic. And then I read Is a River Alive for our quote. And unfortunately, I do have to say, I didn't like this one. In theory, like, I really like nonfiction. I do read quite a bit of it. I like nonfiction about the environment. And I really love kind of pondering these like philosophical questions of, can we consider to be a river to be an alive part of nature? Because there's bodies of water, it flows, there's rivers that dry up, they like have life cycles of when they're really active and when they're not. So there's a lot of things that, like, in theory, super interesting, but I don't know, like, something about the book itself didn't really work for me. I think it's just I didn't love the narrative style that the author conveyed. And it was really him just telling stories about these rivers and his experiences with them, and really just diving into a few different rivers. I don't know. I didn't find it interesting, unfortunately. So that one's only going to be like a 2-star for me because I just really could not get my head into it. But with that one, we're going to pull another one. I like the idea of having 2 prompts on the go because I'd like to be jumping between books quite a bit. So we are going to pick the next one. Let's go with pink. Okay, and what does this say? Is that upside down? That might be upside down. What does this say? Rainbow black. So we have a prompt of the even bigger rainbow, where there's a number of colors given, and you have to read a book that corresponds to that color, aka, so basically you just have to read a book that has a cover that is this color. So I need to find a book with a primarily black cover, and that's what we'll pick. I'm going to take a quick peruse right now. Okay, this one is maybe like half black, but I think we can count it because I would say the primary color of this one is black. And that is Game On by Navessa Allen. This is book 3 in a very spicy romance series, and I happen to have a holdout checked out on Libby. Let's read it. Let's make this opportunity. And I feel like it will be a very quick read. Romance typically is, so this could be the perfect choice for it. So we're going to do that. And yeah, perfect choice. I'm getting ready to go do a bike ride tonight, and thought it would be a good time to actually update a little bit about what I'm reading before I do it. So we have made a little bit more progress on Red City, and I think I'm actually going to try and read a bit while I'm doing my bike ride, because I'm just going to be on the spin bike, and we have a little bit of we're only biking for an hour, so it's not that bad, but feels like it could be a good opportunity, a good time to get some reading in. But so where we are in this one, it's really, really good. Like, I'm enjoying it so much. But I kind of touched on it before, but we're following two main characters, Ari and Sam. And they become really good friends when they're in school. They are kind of both like not really outcasts, but they don't really fit in that well. They don't have a lot of friends or other people that they can confide in their life. And as children, they start sending each other these long letters every night and just like really talking about everything that is on their mind, while at the same time like not at all delving into the details of their actual life. So it's really like they might not know these details about the ins and outs of each other's lives, but they know each other on a very deep emotional, intellectual level. And because of this, they keep this secret. Each one has their own secret from each other about these crime syndicates that they have basically gotten involved in and are starting to be trained up with. So they spend, like most of their life just very, very deeply being emotionally caring for each other, while having all of these deep secrets and wanting more than anything to be able to admit them, but at the same time knowing that that would kind of betray everything that they are currently working with. So we have this, and basically after they graduate, they go their separate ways, and we come back several years later. Both of them have really started to make a name for themselves within the crime alchemy world, and they kind of quickly realize after crossing paths that they have very much found themselves on opposite sides of this war, because the two syndicates that they work with are each other's like closest rivals and are pretty much vying for power, vying for money, and like each have a secret goal that they want to obliterate the others. And when we come back to them, things are starting to move. There are some power plays that are starting to be played, and just some things that are starting to move within the city. And it is so good. It is truly, truly incredibly good. So addicting. Like, I cannot put this down because I am so incredibly invested in seeing where it goes. And also I find these characters have deeply, deeply already embedded themselves in my heart, and especially their relationship, and seeing these thoughts of how they really feel for each other and how much they deeply care and love each other but now they're trying to like deal with that while realizing that this is going to be a betrayal to everything that they've been working on if they let themselves feel these things. Just so interesting. So interesting. I'm loving this world. I'm loving the alchemy that's involved. I'm loving the crime. I'm loving the drama. I'm just loving all of it. And Red City is going incredibly well. And then I have started Game On as well. I'm really not far into this one. I'm only about 15%. But we have two main characters, Stella and Tyler. If I might have those names wrong. But Tyler runs this like illegal gambling ring and basically manages to, he did this on purpose, but he manages to get Stella's brother $3 million in debt for him. And Stella, after figuring out what goes on, agrees to take on her brother's debt. But doing so, she has to basically pretend to be Tyler's girlfriend because he wants her to introduce, what he says is he wants her to introduce him to more wealthy people within the city to basically try and scam them. But we learn that Tyler's father is actually very financially involved with Stella's family, and there is something going on where he seems to be really bent on taking down his father and absolutely destroying him. So we're still very early on in this. Right now, Stella, incredibly attracted to Tyler, but deeply hating him because of what he's doing to her brother and the fact that he is basically making her pretend to be his girlfriend. I know this book, it's going to be spicy. It's going to be like, you know, have a little gray line that we're crossing. Just a lot of things that I'm excited for. Like, these are very morally gray books, just in general. The characters are very morally gray. They're not necessarily the people you root for the most, but very fun to read. And I'm really enjoying like pretty much every book that I've read within this series. So that's where we are right now. I hopefully will get some time reading on the bike. Either that or I'll just watch YouTube. And maybe I'll make a bit more progress tonight.
When my days end, I must just fall in love. I'm not the DJ and I love this.
Okay, so we have many updates to talk about. I did finish the 2 books that I have on the go, or I had on the go, I guess. And then after that, we're gonna do a little wrap of what I read in April and what prompts I'm gonna count them towards. Because I figured like I read a few other books that weren't really covered in any of these vlogs, and we might as well count them towards something and make this life a little bit easier for us. And after that, we're just gonna wrap off the vlog. So let us get started and wrap up the 2 books that we had just been reading. So Red City and Game On. And you know, luckily for me, I mean, not very luckily, I had a very bad stomach time last night and didn't want to do anything. So I just laid in bed and read and got through quite a bit. Not lucky for me because ouch, but here we are. So let's first talk about Red City. And I was pretty far through it when we did our last update. And I'm just really happy to say that my happy, great feelings of loving this book absolutely carried through. And we absolutely got to the end of this one just feeling so incredibly positive about the book overall. I love this. Like, I'm actually giving it 5 stars. I deeply love this. So there's so many things I like about it. Like, first off, I'm gonna say urban fantasy is my absolute favorite subgenre of fantasy, and anytime that we do have this kind of as a backdrop, it always ends up like really just like pushing the book a little bit extra for me. Like, that is something time and time again that really makes me incredibly happy, is just in this urban setting. And there was just so many other elements that I really enjoyed about it. The alchemy magic, so interesting how it like was weaved within this world. And you could see that even though it wasn't something that the larger population knew about, it was still very like a secret magic, but it also had so many influences on the real world that we could see, and just how it like was weaving into the like politics of this world and all of these different things that are going on. And I love seeing that. The characters are all like in a weird morally gray area that I appreciate, where you can see all of them doing maybe shitty things, but you understand the reasoning behind it. I like that. I like seeing like somebody not wholly bad, wholly good, but just having that weird in between where we feel for them. We understand why they're making these decisions, even if they happen to be terrible ones. And then also the romance that was at the center of it had my heart so deeply feeling for these characters. And I really like this, just through and through. So many good things I loved about it. Incredibly excited for book 2 now. I don't even know when that's coming out. I kind of want to see, I don't know. Like I want to look out and find 2. But I'm really excited for the next one. Literally my only complaint I'm gonna say about this one, this is not a complaint, this is just more me personally as a reader, is I read a lot of Marie Lu growing up. So I think I've read all of her YA books, and pivoting to having an adult book by her where there is much spice, many spicy scenes, kind of felt a little weird. Like literally entirely only because I associate her as a YA writer. That was a little difficult to get my head wrapped around. But I mean, there were good spicy scenes, I will say that. Otherwise, yeah, really loved this one. Cannot wait for book 2. And that was for one of our BIPOC author books. Next, we did Game On, and this was for a cover that was primarily black. There is quite a bit of green on this one, but we're counting it still because I don't want to second guess myself. This is the 3rd book in a series of interconnected standalones where they're all like really spicy books, with, I'd say, very much involving, again, morally gray characters, and in these ones exploring different genres of kink, or different subcategories of kink, I guess. Book 1 involved a man who did like these shirtless thirst traps with a mask on, and he finds it's basically his roommate's ex-girlfriend gets really obsessed with his videos. He finds out about that and starts stalking her. I really enjoyed it. Book 2 involved I think she was like an OnlyFans model and a member of the mafia. Love that one too. And then this one, we have a tattoo artist who ends up taking on a debt that her brother owes to this like really shitty man, and he essentially blackmails her into being his fake girlfriend and bringing him to high society events so that he can find more targets to potentially blackmail. Morally gray, again, super morally gray. Shitty characters doing lots of shitty things. I happen to like, so I really like this book. I think that this series is a very good line for me of the level of dark romance I like. I don't like anything that is much darker than this. I like that these characters they're morally gray, but again, you can see what their motivations are for the shitty things they do, and they grow. They potentially, if they realize what they're doing is purposeless or just harming people for no reason, they adjust. And I do think that's why I like this series so much. It is the darkest I like to go in my romance. I just really can't get into anything like too extreme past this, but I find like very captivating plots, very interesting characters, and usually there's like multiple different plots going on about some kind of like revenge or blackmail or just something else that is really happening beyond just the romance. And this is another thing. I like when romances have like, it's not just the characters. I like when we see a whole world around them and really understand like their entire life. And it's not just these 2 characters, it's the whole encompassing life. So anyways, with that, I liked it. I liked it a lot. I like this series. I like this author's writing. I think that the spice is very good, and yeah, giving that one 4 stars. I really like it overall. Okay, so we finished those 2. I think that brings us to 4 books that we technically read in this vlog. And now we're gonna go into a little April wrap up, AKA just let's talk about other books that I read just by myself and that are gonna fit within her good prompts. Because again, we are seeing what we can do to make this a little bit easier on ourselves. So first book, I actually read 2 nonfiction. Three. But first one, we're going to say this is one of our nonfiction books. There is a prompt where we have to read 5 nonfiction about 5 different subject matters. And this one that we read, it's called We Will Be Jaguars. And it is a memoir by a woman who lived within the Amazon rainforest and grew up as basically I think isolated tribe is the proper way to describe it, but her people were very isolated from the Western world and grew up very much as living on the land and very much like having next to no contact to the outside world and what was going on, aside from the occasional missionaries who came in and tried to teach her people about God and, you know, westernize them, we can kind of say broadly. And this is an incredibly fascinating memoir where we get to see really like what life is like living within one of these isolated communities, and then seeing all of the changes that are made by the Western world, seeing what happens when the white people come in and basically try to change their culture, try to tell these people what they're doing is wrong, and also trying to, I would say, industrialize the area, because there are certain parts of the rainforest that obviously have been identified as very resource rich, and there are certain areas where there's oil refineries, there's trees that are coming down, and we can say the government of this area is trying to really take advantage of that and make money off of it. And we've really followed our main character's journey as she grows up within this community. She at one point leaves and starts learning more about the world at large, and then basically goes on to become an environmental activist and really a spokesperson for the rights of the Amazonian people, and very much like an environmentalist as well, who is trying to protect the Amazon rainforest and protect the natural world that is there. I thought that this was insanely good. Like, this is truly one of the most unique memoirs I've ever read. I guess I really didn't know that much about the people who live within the Amazon rainforest. Yeah, to be fair, I knew next to nothing. And this was, again, like an incredible learning opportunity, an incredible view, what life was like for our author, and really seeing the impacts that the westernized world is bringing on her people, and just how devastating it is for those who live within. Truly like an insanely good nonfiction book. I gave this 5 stars. I think that overall it was just very, very impactful, very important, very like eye-opening in a lot of ways as well. I feel like this is a very important read. I feel like this is one that I'm going to recommend to so many people. Hard to read at times, very hard to read. Hard to recognize, especially the terrible things that white people have inflicted upon the indigenous people. In this case, indigenous to the, I believe she's in Ecuador. I believe that is the country that she's based out of. And again, just seeing the devastation that humans are bringing to nature. Horrifying. It was 5 stars though. I would highly recommend this one for everyone. And like I said, we are counting this towards one of our nonfiction reads. The next nonfiction I read, and this is once again going to go towards that nonfiction prompt of reading 5 nonfictions of different subjects, is Tremors in the Blood, which is recounting the story of how the polygraph came to be, aka the lie detector test. And it was kind of telling the story of the main people who developed this technology and following their lives and careers, as well as a few of these central cases that really brought the lie detector to public attention. And this was a book that I think, again, some of the information that was shared, very interesting to learn about, interesting to learn the history, but at the same time, I don't feel like the narrative was necessarily the most clear. Like, I feel like the story did jump around quite a bit and didn't really tell us that clear of a picture. The author definitely felt very biased as well about saying how terrible this technology is. And while it's obviously been disproven many times over that the lie detector isn't necessarily it's not a reliable technology. There's so many ways to beat it. It really doesn't indicate that. There's a very clear bias. You could definitely feel it in the writer's in the author's writing that they really disagreed with the invention of this technology. It's like this has definitely caused a lot of issues in society, as we have come to see in this. And there's many ways that it's given false positives, false negatives. It just felt like you could really clearly see that bias in the writer. And that kind of just put like a different note on the book, I guess. And I think the only thing I mean by that is that I like when a book kind of gives you all the points and lets you come to your own conclusion. Like, you're definitely going to come out of this book feeling one way. But I like when the author trusts you to be able to come to that conclusion yourself. Instead, it felt like it was very force-fed. Like, it was very clear exactly what the author's intent was, which is for you to come out of this and feel very negative against the polygraph test. Whereas I think done in a different way, you would have still come out with that conclusion, but it would have felt like you arrived to it yourself, if that makes any sense. And at the same time too, like, I think that this is a very interesting subject, and we could have delved differently into the ethics of using it, and it could have been presented in a much better way, is I guess what I feel, is that we could have really gone different ways with how this story was explained to us. But it ended up just being, a lot of ways, it felt like a dramatization of the lives of the people who were primarily involved in creating the lie detector, and it just didn't end up being that interesting. There's so many other things that I think I would have liked to see in this one. Like, I would like to see more of times that it's been proven that it wasn't reliable, like times when people maybe passed it when they shouldn't have, and what the ramifications of that were. I just wanted more of, I guess, the ethics. I think I just wanted more a deep dive into the ethics and really exploring what this means for society. Instead, it was just kind of boring and really just told us about the lives of its creators. I don't know. This one wasn't great. There were some parts that were interesting. I just didn't overall like the narrative that was used. It also like very abruptly ended, and it kind of just felt like the author had run out of information to include. I don't know. 3 stars for me. Not one of the best I've read recently. And we have a third nonfiction. I am going to count this towards something slightly different though. So we have a prompt, which is just celebration of different cultures and different like months, weeks, awareness months for different groups of people. And I'm going to count this under this one, but this one is going to count towards Women's History Month. And I think this is fitting because it is talking about women's health, and for me, feels like a perfect opportunity to add it in here. So we have Ask Me About My Uterus, and this is a memoir with a woman who's just really talking about all of the different health issues she's had in her life, and in particular, the discovery to trying to find out if she has endometriosis. So I'm just going to read this quickly from the synopsis. In the fall of 2010, Abby Norman's strong dancer's body dropped 40 pounds and gray hairs began to sprout from her temples. She was repeatedly hospitalized in excruciating pain, but the doctors insisted it was a urinary tract infection and sent her home with antibiotics. Unable to get out of bed, much less attend class, Norman dropped out of college and embarked on what would become a years-long journey to discover what was wrong with her. It wasn't until she took matters into her own hands, securing a job in a hospital and educating herself over lunchtime readings in the medical library, that she found an accurate diagnosis of endometriosis. So in Ask Me About My Uterus, Norman describes what it was like to have her pain dismissed, to be told it was all in her head, only to be taken seriously when she was accompanied by a boyfriend who confirmed that her sexual performance was indeed compromised. Putting her own trials into a broader historical, sociocultural, and political context, Norman shows that women's bodies have long been the battleground of a never-ending war for power, control, medical knowledge, and truth. So, really, again, just diving into women's health and women's reproductive health. This happens to be a subgenre of nonfiction that I read a crazy amount about. I just really tend to, majorly feel for any woman who's going through this, but I think that is something that needs way more attention in the world and is really not talked about often enough. So overall, I enjoy this. I'm giving it 4 stars. It The only issue for me, it wasn't revolutionary, which feels terrible to talk about someone's memoir and say it that way. I just read a lot of books about women's health, and for me, in terms of the ones I've read, this wasn't quite as good, which again sounds terrible. Yeah, and it also just, it kind of left you feeling like very depressed and hopeless, unfortunately. Yeah, just really not a happy book to read. So I give this one 4 stars. Really good overall, just yeah, super depressing. Okay, we have 2 more to talk about. We're going to try to go a little more rapid fire because I feel like I am running out of steam. Next, we have Dawn of the Firebird. This is a romantasy book. I'm counting it towards my BIPOC author prompts. So this will mean we've now read 2 out of the 10. And the author of this one is Pakistani, I believe. So we are following it's about the daughter of an overthrown emperor. And we basically have this girl who is born within this tribe. She's the daughter of an emperor, but from one of his many wives. She was not a favored wife, so he sent her back to her people. After a certain amount of time, she goes to him, becomes part of the palace life. Then there's an overthrown of the empire. It was boring. It was very, very boring, to be very honest. I did not enjoy this one. I felt like there was a lot of very abrupt changes in scenery, and that really bothered me. There were some that I wish we had spent so much more time with, and I think that was my biggest issue, is that I was getting really, really invested in this one plot point and then super abruptly changed to something I did not care about, and it made it much more difficult to get into the book. And that might have been an issue too, where because it felt like they were trying to do too many things, they were trying to move us around and just have too many things happening in quick succession, it felt like the pacing at times was super weird. It felt like there was a lot of things that should have been developed upon that didn't end up really going anywhere. And then there was also a lot of info dumping, I found, that again, like really just did weird things to the pacing, because you'd be moving super quickly between locations and events happening, and then have crazy exposition that just did not feel necessary and really would just like slow things down. A lot of things, like I didn't enjoy the main character as well. She felt kind of stupid, I guess, like very juvenile. And there was certain points when, especially at the beginning, she's going from this tribe to this huge court. And of course you understand that this is a huge change in her life. Of course there's going to be culture shock and a crazy change, but then it doesn't feel like she really grew up past that. And she also had points where she had crazy PTSD. She had memory loss of things that she was purposely blocking out. And I don't feel like that went anywhere. Like I felt like it had a potential to be a really interesting plot point, and it just did not go anywhere. So that one was 2 stars for me. Really disappointing. I had a feeling that this was going to be like, or I guess I was going into it very hopeful that it would be something really good. And it wasn't at all for me. Because the comp titles for this one are The Poppy War, She Who Becomes the Sun, and The Will of the Many. 2 of those are 5-star books for me. So I really thought that we were gonna have a great new epic fantasy, epic romantasy, and it was not that. But yeah, we have another prompt done. And the final book I have, so for the spooky creatures little square, there's several different creatures that you have to read a book that involves them. So this one works for the vampire prompt, and it's Road Trip with a Vampire. This one, we have a witch who used to be incredibly powerful, incredibly well known. She is in hiding, basically, / has retired from the witchy life and now runs a yoga studio, and comes across a vampire with memory loss. And after a series of events, the 2 of them decide to go on a road trip together across the country to relive to go to this mysterious place that is beckoning him, and see if they can recover his memories and see who he is, I guess. I like this series overall. So this is the 3rd book in a series. They're kind of not serious like books at all. They are silly. They're kind of ridiculous. I don't mind that. I don't mind that in the right context. In the right context, if I am going into a book knowing that it is a silly good time, I don't mind that at all. This is one I did not happen to mind. It was honestly just like, yeah, a silly road trip across the country, the two of them falling in love, and him slowly regaining his memories, her slowly accepting the witch that she is. Like, I don't really know what else to say from this one. It's not super serious. It is really just a silly good time. And I feel that way about every book within this series. The first one was My Roommate is a Vampire. Ridiculous. It was so silly. So fun though. I don't know. They were fun characters. It was cute. I like the romance. What else do you need? So yeah, we are gonna give that one 4 stars. Really, really enjoyed it. And with that, we're gonna finish off this weekly vlog. I'm gonna immediately jump into the next one and try once again hit as many of these Herkid prompts as we can. Thank you for watching today's video. Keep your eye out because we're gonna be trying to finish this challenge by the end of the year. By the end of the year, I do mean the end of the challenge, which is in July. So we need to hustle, but I am very, very excited. So thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in something soon.